Minister for Transport, Terry Mulder, good morning.
Good morning, Neil.
Okay, who are the big losers here? Is it the cab licence holders, is it?
Look, we tried to take a balanced approach, and in relation to licence values, we have moved away from Alan Fells's recommendation that we issue licences on an annual basis at $20,000 capped, which would have meant over a period of time licence values would have come down alongside the annual licences that we'd be issuing.
Yeah.
What we determined to do in that case was to lift that to $22,000 because the inquiry said we could still afford to pay the drivers 55% of the fare box. The operators could still run successfully. And over and above that, we said we would index that $22,000, which means those fees will go up slightly each year. But alongside them, the perpetual licence owners who have their licence out on assignment will also get a gradual improvement. So we've actually stopped the free fall of their licence values.
Okay.
We've put a floor underneath it, and we've been able to achieve what we want in terms of customer service and improvements for drivers.
Okay, well, I'm told a year ago a licence was worth $500,000. What'll it be worth now?
Well, they tell me at the moment they're trading at around about $330,000.
Would you expect them to come down further now?
No, I wouldn't expect that.
What are people making?
They may jump a bit because the simple fact that we put CPI into our $22,000, which would indicate that the licences would go up in line with the licences that we're going to release on an annual basis.
But what do I lease a licence for at the moment?
If you want to lease a lot, some of them out there at the moment are anywhere between $26,000, $28,000, $30,000.
Okay.
The licences that we're putting out are $22,000 upfront, no refund. And anybody who goes and gets one of those licences then has to go and set themselves up as a business. So you'd expect on top of that they're going to have to pay a little bit more to get themselves in business. Whereas a lot of the licences that are out there on assignment at the moment have cars and a lot of other benefits attached to them.
But just help me with this. At the moment I pay $300,000 for a licence or thereabouts. Yes. It has been $500,000. Now you're going to sell me one for $22,000?
No, what we're going to... You can actually... come into the Victorian Taxi Services Commission and you can get a licence for $22,000, but you must pay that $22,000 each and every year. So you pay it each and every year to operate a taxi, and you sit that against someone who has a licence at the moment assigned to them that's probably in the order of $26,000, $28,000, $30,000. So what this will do, it'll make the licence holders, the perpetual licence holders, bargain a little bit better in terms of the people that they've got licences assigned to, because there's the opportunity for that person to come into the commission and pick up a licence at $22,000.
So will there be extra licences?
Professor Fells indicated that he believed there would be an increase in licences, but it wouldn't be rampant. And we have provisions within the legislation, powers for the Taxi Services Commission, that if they believe that there was excessive entry into the marketplace of licences, of these licences that we're going to sell, they have the ability to cease trading of those licences.
But how many licences are in the marketplace now?
Pardon?
How many in the marketplace now?
There's about 5,000.
And how many?
The majority of those are in the metropolitan area, urban areas, and a small amount in regional and country Victoria.
So what's your cap for the first year? If I walk in and want to buy one of your new ones at $22,000 for the next year, and I want to buy 500, can I?
There is no limit on what anyone walks through the door and asks to buy up day one, but the Taxi Services Commission would have a look at that, and if someone walked through and said, I want to buy 500 licences, the Commission may say, well, look, that's going to flood the market.
What about,
we won't allow that to happen.
What about 500 different people? Is there a limit on how many licences can be sold in a year?
No, there isn't a limit at this point in time, but the Taxi Service Commission can make that decision. If they believe there has been excessive entry into the market, a negative impact on consumers and a negative impact on the industry, then they have the ability to stop that trade.
So this will get more cabs on the road?
It'll get more cabs on the road, but most importantly, we're looking at, and some of the recommendations of Alan Fells and the government accepting some of the recommendations, is an alteration to the fare structure that encourages cabs to be out there when we need them, late Friday night, late Saturday night. It introduces a system, and the Essential Services Commission will do this work for us to give us the final outcome, but an issue of maximum fares, both for peak and off-peak, the ability to negotiate discounts with operators or permit holders, the ability for flat fares, and the ability for shared fares.
Flat fares, so I can negotiate with the driver?
You can negotiate with the driver. For instance, if your station had 80 trips to Melbourne Airport each year, you might go to a permit holder or to an operator and say, look, we'd like to negotiate with you in terms of a flat fare to take us to the airport and bring someone in from the airport.
Okay, 96900 693 13 13 32. What do you think of this system? What about hire cars? Are they affected?
Hire cars, at the moment, hire cars have to be cars that go over the threshold for a luxury vehicle. Now, that meant that they had to buy a certain type of vehicle that didn't necessarily meet the needs of their customers. That has been removed, so they can now buy a vehicle that they believe meets the needs of their customers. They buy a licence, $40,000 once off. Once they've paid that $40,000, they can operate.
Any change in who they can pick up?
They can't do rank work. They have to be pre-booked services.
Okay. Knowledge test. Will there be knowledge of English as part of the knowledge test?
There is a new driver knowledge test, and that affects drivers who want to operate in the metropolitan and urban areas. In urban areas, you're talking about Ballarat, Bendigo, Geelong, Dandenong, Frankston, down to the Mornington Peninsula, that area around the outskirts of Melbourne. And that particular test will really hone in on driving skills, customer service skills, English language proficiency, understanding regulations.
So there will be an English test?
Awareness, and so on.
There will be an English test?
We'll have that up and running within 6 months.
There will be an English test as part of it?
There will be. And the Taxi Services Commission will be in charge of developing that particular test, and it'll go out to the market. But most importantly, it won't be conducted by people who are aligned to the taxi industry. It'll be conducted independently. So
the Taxi Services Commission got a big role here. They're determining the number of cabs on the road, they're determining the fares, and they're determining the tests.
Absolutely.
And this is Graham Samuel,
They have a significant role to undertake, and we've appointed Graham Samuel, of course, as the chair. We've got a barrister sitting alongside who has background in competition, Mirren Kelsall, who was the former chair of the Public Transport Ombudsman's Office. So we've got some very good people in there, and naturally the Taxi Services Commission will have to be manned and beefed up to make sure that they can meet the demands of the industry.
The 5 percentage point increase in the take for the cab drivers, which I guess comes out of the pocket of the operator, what will that take their hourly rate to?
Well, it doesn't go on an hourly rate, and there never has been an hourly rate for drivers.
No, I know, but they quote it a lot, though, don't they?
Yeah, but they've had Bailey agreements in place in the past, and some of those have been written on the back of a piece of paper and weren't all that clear. Under the new arrangements, they will have a legally binding driver agreement that deals with disputes through the Taxi Industry Commission. If unresolved, it'll go to the Small Business Commissioner, but they will get a mandated 55%, and some of the indications of pay increase are between 10 to 14%.
Oh, okay. So, bottom line for the customer, why is it better?
Drivers are better paid, better trained, more accessible vehicles, FPOS costs, the current 10% for FPOS cut back to 5%, an ability to negotiate a discount, replace the 50% surcharge for the high occupancy vehicles with a straight flat fare, talking taximeters, shared ride and set route fares, dome lights, but the particular operators will have the ability to design their own dome lights, but the dome lights have to indicate what the status of a particular taxi is, tracking of customer complaints by the Taxi Commission to make sure that the operators or permit holders deal with taxi complaints appropriately. They have to have child restraints made available to them if they request one in a taxi, better cab information, and we will continue, Neil, with our continual sweep of the police leak database with the database that we hold for taxi drivers, hire car drivers and bus drivers to make sure that we get people out behind the wheel who shouldn't be there.
Cleaner cabs?
Certainly competition is going to bring that about, and certainly the fact that lifting restrictions on what type of vehicles can be used in the industry. But we believe that competition is going to be the best way of getting better outcomes for drivers, cleaner and more presentable cabs, and cabs that meet the community's needs.